quickly from me. So my name is Neha Jagannath. I'm Australian. I am a third year ALT in Tokunoshima High School. And I have a Bachelor of Languages honours from Australian National University. I'm not really qualified in any way. I'm just trying to use what my experience has been in my high school for the last 3 years to hopefully pass that on. So today, we're going to go. Okay, so a quick overview of what I will go through today. So the first, we're going to have 2 scenarios for you to think about. Then I will go into a little bit of useful theory for teaching critical thinking. After that, I will get into some important concepts for English essay writing and debate, because this workshop is actually more about essay writing and debate, hopefully, than actually just critical thinking as a topic. And then hopefully there'll be some good activities you can use with your classes. And then if we have time, a Q&A at the end. Okay, so let's get just stuck into it straight away. So you're going to need your worksheets here. This is going to be the first scenario. Okay, would you rather take the toll road or the free road? So I've given you this question. I'll give you a little bit more detail. It's all on your worksheet. Please follow along. So you are doing a road trip from Hakodate to Sapporo over a long weekend. You have a choice. Toll road or free road. If you take the toll road, your trip will decrease by 5 hours, but you will have to pay 2,000 yen. If you take the free road, your trip will increase by 5 hours, but you have a more beautiful view. So, in your pairs, please discuss and write a short, very short, less than 50 words answer, like probably 2 sentences. So yes, I'll give you some time to talk now. 2 minutes. Volunteers to share which side they chose and why. Yes, we got David up here before.
I would take the toll road. I would take the toll road because I want to spend more time in Sapporo. I want to spend more time at my destination.
Oh, yeah, okay. You'll take the toll road to spend more time at your destination. Okay. Anyone do the opposite? Or this? Oh, same. Okay, yeah, sure.
Avoid driving.
Avoid driving. You don't like driving? Shorten that time. Very important. Yeah.
We'd rather
try two more times. Okay.
Instead, I will go sightseeing or take a nap.
I'm sorry?
Instead, I will go sightseeing or take a nap.
Oh, okay. You can go sightseeing or take a nap. Okay, thank you for sharing your ideas. So now, without any explanation of what I just did, I'm gonna dump you into the next scenario. So, scenario number 2. Smartphones should be completely banned in schools. Okay, so this time, please pretend you're a student who has to write an essay. Do you agree or disagree with the topic? Why? So again, I will give you 2 minutes. Please discuss and then write like a 1 to 2 sentence answer.
When I was a student, after lunch,
I disagree with this statement, but I agree that
So we are once more approaching the last 30 seconds, so make sure you have something written down. Okay, time's up. Okay, so once more, I request volunteers. Anyone wanting to share which side? Yes, please.
I disagree.
Disagree? Why?
I think that children should have to wait until adult to make responsibilities.
Ooh, okay, so they need responsibility.
Yeah. And learning how to use your smartphone appropriately at the right time is something that can be done from a young age.
Okay, yeah, you need to learn how to, yeah, nice, okay. Anyone else? Any answers? Okay,
I also disagree,
Yeah.
Because it opens up chances for bullying to apply to kids having maybe a cheaper phone
Oh,
or
yeah.
having an expensive phone.
yeah. Disagree because you don't want it to be banned?
I want it to be there.
Oh, you want it to be banned, okay, so agreed side, okay. Anyone else wanna share? Yeah? Yes, please? Yeah?
I disagree because when Mount Fuji erupts, smartphones
Oh,
may last
Mount
for a
Fuji,
year.
yeah.
Mount approximately erupts.
Oh, Mount Fuji, yeah?
So the smartphone tell us immediately
Oh.
for evacuation.
That is true, yes.
It's a must item.
Yes, yes. You get the smartphone alerts. Very important in Japan, yes. Any others? Yeah.
I disagree with that idea for a similar reason, because in that scenario, smartphones allow students to contact their parents.
Yes, yeah, good point. Contact your parents. Very good. Okay, so now, did you notice any similarities between the 2 scenarios that I just gave you? Okay, so please take some time to talk again in your heads. You can do maybe 1 minute this time? 1 minute, yeah. You don't need to write anything, just please talk. Yeah. Keep in mind, critical thinking is the
there are
overall.
always
Okay.
exceptions.
not a lot of because what are the trade-offs? What is the trade-off? They're not the same kind of issues.
Well, they're both
Once more, I ask for some volunteers, please.
I noticed that like in both scenarios, there was a lack of a lot of background information.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of questions like, okay, how long does it take with the toll road to get
Yeah.
from?
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
if you're banning smartphones, is it just the use? Can teachers use them if they are banned? Things
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, that's good points, yeah. Yeah, there is a lack of information definitely. Anyone else? Okay, well, we had three. Okay, I'll go five. That one.
We said that there's no right or wrong answers for any of these scenarios.
Yeah.
It's a personal preference.
Yeah.
Depending on what you think is the most important.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess if you have more information, maybe it will become more factual in that situation. But yeah, otherwise, with the limited information, it's just whatever, I guess. Yeah.
Very similar. You gave two choices, but there's more than two choices.
Ooh, that's also true. Yeah, you could have some in between. Yeah, and yeah, yeah.
For both scenario, we can decide based on that purpose.
The purpose. That is true. Did anyone notice anything when they were writing? Did you, any of you compare? Sorry, I didn't really give the instruction, did I? Please take a minute to compare the way you wrote your sentence. I want you to take a little step. Did you notice anything?
This is presenting one scenario, and then you either agree or disagree, or all scenarios. So, in this one, like, instead of saying I disagree, I agree.
Sorry, didn't give you as long for this one. Did you notice anyone want to share anything? Yes.
So the first one's a little more personal, it's asking what I prefer. The
Yeah.
second one is almost unrelatable. It's asking about a scenario that's real, but it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but the first one's a little more, it's asking me.
Yeah.
The second one's a little like,
Yeah, no, good point. Yeah. Anyone else? Thinking also grammatically if possible.
So the second one is a lot more formulaic. It's kind of leading you down saying, oh, I disagree because blah,
Yeah,
blah,
that's
blah,
true. Yeah.
blah. Whereas the first one is a lot more open-ended. There are a lot more ways that you can go about answering that question.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. This may also because it's my first workshop, I might have misled a little bit. But okay, so I'll take you through what I wanted you to notice, and feel free to write it down in this part. So here we go. So I think some of you got it. So the two questions are basically the same type of question, because it's would you rather X or would you rather Y? And then please explain why. So I think most of you got that part of what I just did. And then I was hoping with the second part of having you write down your answer, that you would hopefully notice if you were writing similar like sentences or like sentence types. Because as English teachers, we can like expect our students to think really well and critically. But if they can't express it in English, that's possibly not a lack of them thinking deeply. It might be that they don't have the grammar that they need. Like we can intuitively go, oh, back in the first one, I've written like, if you do blah blah blah, you can do this or whatever. And if you take this, so if you take the free road, your trip will decrease, or increase, but you have a more beautiful view. So I thought personally I laid out a bit formulaically here, but we'll get into that at the latter half of this. Otherwise, I think, yeah, you should hopefully have used like a simple like I agree or I disagree or I think, and because we didn't have much time, you probably didn't write like concrete examples, but if this was for your students, they would be expected to write a much more concrete example here. But our students probably would be struggling with that part, because even if they know what they prefer, they don't necessarily know how to express that in English, right? So the point of this experiment was to try and point out how even if we can think really deeply, we may be lacking in another spot, or we might fail to see that these two questions are actually the same and that there are actually a lot of similarities. So there's an experiment here that I tried to copy. I don't know if it worked. But in this experiment, researchers gave participants a really tricky medical problem. So the problem was, how can they kill a malignant tumor or a cancer cell? How can they kill him without killing the cells around it? Okay? And so one group had to solve this without any extra treatment or like any other thing happening. Another group was given a story to read before being told to solve this problem. And so this story was about a rebel army that needed to defeat a dictator. But the problem with this is that the dictator was hiding in a fortress. So you couldn't attack him directly. And the solution to this was you scatter his forces and then you can pinpoint your attack against this dictator. So simply put, the solution to both of these problems was quite similar in that they had to kind of scatter the people that they didn't want to hurt and then pinpoint their attack against this one thing. But even though the second group was given this story about military and army, they couldn't make the connection between a story about war and a story about cancer cells and medical problems. So the takeaway I want you to have here is, when confronted with a problem, we tend to dwell on the surface structure. So we fail to realize that we've thought through a problem before. So what I wanted you to notice with the two problems is that there might be like some surface differences. Let me see if I go into that. Yeah. So there might be some surface differences of these two problems, but at the end they're quite similar. Like you choose a side and you argue that side effectively. But the issue for students is, even if they understand an idea, there's no guarantee that their understanding will transfer to like being applicable in a new context. So they might understand something, but new thing, they're like, I don't know how to do this. So researchers call this an issue between the surface structure and the deep structure. So here we've got a nice little iceberg on your sheet that I want you to think of it like. So the surface structure in these scenarios is this, like the details. So like you have a problem about whether you take a free road or a toll road, or you have an issue about medical, like cancer cells, or wars, or smartphones. So that's like the details of the scenario. But the deep structure is that you can kind of approach these problems the same way, right? Like for our writing task, we can teach them like, hey, this is the grammar you need to use of, I agree with this, I think this, because blah, blah, blah. And, you know, if we do this, this can happen, or that can happen. But as a result, you know, all these like classic phrases we use in English writing. The only issue is if we tell our students, hey, use for example, use is they don't actually know how to use it because it's really hard to understand the deep structure unless you're like a professional, which most of you are. So you probably could see through the problem a little bit more and see how to easily answer these questions. So if you're a little bit muddled here as to what's going on, I'm going to go into a little bit more on the deep structure that we need for English in this next one. Okay, so we've got another little section here. So we've got peel, Oreo, and burgers. So I want you to take 2 minutes to discuss in your groups. Actually, yeah, 2 minutes. Do you know what these acronyms means? Have you seen these before? Do you use them in your class? Okay, 2 minutes. Some of you may know, some of you may not. If you don't, please feel free to turn behind you and see someone behind you.
Start out with
I haven't heard someone mention like how to get to this.
I think we're real acronyms. Peel, Oreo, or burger.
Okay, yes, hello everyone. So, anyone care to explain for me what these are? Like, if you know just one, like, yeah?
Yale's point, example, explanation, like.
Yes. I think it's gonna come all together at once. So, anyone know Oreo? Does anyone use Oreo? Yes, please.
Opinion, reason, and the E is same as
Example.
peel. Then again, opinion.
Opinion, yes. And anyone know burger? Okay. Well, but yes, thank you to everyone. So it's gonna come all together, I'm sorry. But so yeah. Peel is point, example, explanation, and link. Example can sometimes be evidence, I think. Or your opinion, reason, example, opinion. And the burger method is just the same really. It's that you have your introduction or your like opinion at the top, your example, explanation in the middle, and then you have to have another patty at the bottom, which is your opinion or what you said at the beginning again. So all of these are just ways to explain the structure of English arguments. I don't think there's an ideal one of these, so whichever is easiest and appeals to you the most, please take that. But the basics are just, at the beginning of your argument, you want to say what side are you on? And then you want to give me a reason. Give an example, maybe explain in more detail if you can, and then summarize what you just said. So, I've said at the end, this probably makes no sense without an example, but most of you are English teachers or ALTs, so like, you will probably understand this. But if you say this to a student, they're probably like, So, here we're gonna get into a little bit of writing and reading. Okay, so for the next one, please try not to look at the answers. Okay, so I've now given you a reading on the other side here. Okay, I've given it to you in English and Japanese, as I would to my students, because sometimes it's easier to have the translations. We're not stopping with small words. So I'll give you, let's say, 5 minutes, maybe. Do you need 5 minutes, or maybe 4 minutes? Yeah, we'll do 4 minutes maybe. So you can read, and so what I want you to do is I want you to highlight using one of these methods. I've chosen Oreo as the example today. Where is the opinion? Where's the reason? Example, and where's the restatement of the opinion and the summary of reasons if you can get to that stage as well. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully the instructions. If you're finished, please feel free to talk to the person next to you and start comparing.
Oh, interesting. Some of the same mistakes my students make. Might be just an issue with how it's explained to them.
Anyone want to try and explain? I didn't have. I think mine will have the answers up. So, does anyone want to try and explain how they labeled their writing? Anyone? Everyone do sounds? Yes, thank you.
Okay, first sentence, I do not think overtime should be banned.
Yeah.
That's the overlying opinion.
Yes.
Obviously, no. Then the next sentence is number 2, their reason, help
Okay.
students to understand lessons, teach them how to study. The second paragraph, you could argue that is a reason or the restatement of the opinion of what they said earlier, but
Yeah.
I'll say that's also 2. The next sentence, for example, is an example.
Yeah, that easy one there.
And then in the last sentence of that paragraph, that's restatement of their opinion,
Yeah.
I think. And then the next paragraph is similar to the first sentence is a 2 or a 4 depending. Next sentence is 3. Actually, all 3 of these sentences could technically be just the explanation of the reason.
Yeah.
And then the final one, I'd say, is 5 or something.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Anyone different want to share? Okay, I might just go into mine because I think potentially I may need to also rework the thing because here I've been thinking maybe my students don't understand it, but if English speakers are also not understanding, might be my issue. But anyway, sorry, this goes a little bit wonky. Okay, so at the beginning we've got opinion, that's the easy part. So then the next part actually is a little bit of a trick. So in English, we often have this thing called signposting. I probably should have called it that. I might have made it clearer. So when I was saying summary of reasons, I meant as in you're signposting the reasons that are to come next. So it's actually a number 5 for me personally, but I completely understand where you're coming from. And then for each paragraph structure, I kind of broke it down to be really simple. Sometimes we say you need an example and an explanation. I find it really hard to explain what the difference is if we're not using factual evidence. So I've broken, the first sentence is the reason, like that is the main reason or point of that paragraph. And then I haven't really, it's like a white highlight. That part I personally considered, example or explanation. And then this is a very short paragraph structure. I think typically you would also want like a link at the end here that goes back to the top, depending on how academic your students are. Mine are not that academic, so I try to keep it simple. And then we come back down to here, so we've got the opinion again, also the restatement opinion in this case. So this would be number 4 here. And then we have the summary of the reasons again here, which again tricks my students quite often because they think that final sentence is all the one, but if you break it down, there's like 2 things happening here. One is telling you what side I'm on again, and then is telling you why. Typically, I do not expect my students to really be able to do this part, the signposting. So that's a little bit of the tricky part. But I like to have it there for them to see that this is what I want them to be able to do one day. Because I have looked at some of the university like Kyoto tests, and I have noticed that it follows not the exact same structure as this, because this is something I wrote, so it's not that great, but it is very similar. As I think anyone who's gone to an English university, we kind of had it drilled into us, especially if you're in the arts side, that you have to have your opinion at the beginning, or like your side of your grade. Then you have what are you going to write about coming next. This part I don't think gets taught very often in Japanese schools, but I think it's important we do teach them because it's really important when they're writing their Kyoto test, because that's kind of the hint on how to read quickly. Because if you know that these 2 are the main reasons, and there's only 2 paragraphs, you already know what my reasons are. You don't have to read any further. Or you at least know if there's a question about doing homework, where do I go here. So this is the only reason I bring up the signposting. Yes. So at the bottom of your page, I've got also, now that you've seen the work examples, are there any phrases that you could steal to write your own argument? This is what I like to ask my students at this point. They're not necessarily the best at stealing from me, necessarily. They're very good at stealing, well, I guess they steal, but they don't change it enough. So, also, are there any phrases that you found in my writing that you thought would be good to teach your students? Any grammar structures that you noticed? And then after this exercise, I would typically ask my students to write against me, so they can't fully steal my idea, but they can steal my structure, because that's something they need to understand, right? They need that structure, but we want to see them thinking for themselves. So this is my in-between, to be able to give them enough of a scaffold that they don't feel like they're just being left to drown in deep water. Okay, I'll give you like maybe 30 seconds if you want to like take another look through. Please feel free to argue with me about if you think this is not right, if I maybe didn't explain well what the purpose of this was. But yeah, we'll give them 30 seconds to think about if there's anything you would steal. How could you use this in your class? Okay, so now I'll get into the last couple of things with the last sort of 10 minutes that we have left. So here I want to introduce a couple more activities that I hope you can try and use with your class. So for my students, one of the things they really struggle with is illustrating their ideas. So they might say, let's go back to that. Let's see, we just did homework. So with homework, they might say, oh, we're busy, if they know the word busy. But they might say that they're busy, that's why they don't want homework. But that's not really a good example, right? That's a reason. I don't understand, like, we need a little bit more. So we can teach them like it is because, or for example, but after that they kind of don't know where to go. So I've been trying this type of sentence instead. Sorry it all came at once. But I kind of did it a little bit earlier where it's the if something, they can or will something, so they can or will something. So I like this as a basic sentence to teach for giving examples. Because it allows them to imagine a very specific situation. So if something were to happen, what can / will someone do, and what is the result of that? So in my example I had, if students have no homework, some students will not study. As a result, their grades will go down. So we have a very, very specific example here. And do I have any other questions? Oh yes, so I found that students really struggle with the if. I don't know if that's the same for everyone here, but for mine, they really struggle with how to use if and just imagining an example. I think because often we introduce if only in our grammar sessions, and then we don't really help them connect that to their writing. But this if statement is so useful for when they need to give an example. So I like to break it down into at least, instead of having to do like, if I were a millionaire, I could buy a house. Like, those types of verbs are a lot harder for my students. So I keep it a little simpler and just focus on can and will. Because that's at least, you don't have to worry as much about modifying the verbs around it afterwards. And it's a little bit simpler. So I think we have a little bit of time. So if you can, could you think of like a way to disagree with my idea, or could you think of a way to use this basic phrase for one of maybe the earlier two scenarios that we had as well, if you would like. So yeah, just please think. You can just talk with your pair. I'll give you like a minute. Yeah. You use this sentence.
The way of presenting an example that is not right example.
Thank you. So I'm going to keep moving on the next little bit. So then I think. Okay. So we've been talking a lot about essay writing here. So I now want to quickly touch a bit on debate, which I think is the better companion to essay writing. So I know, sorry, my slides are going to dump everything at once. I know many classrooms like prefer to do discussion, I think, because it sounds easier. It sounds like, oh, you know, just get the students to do a discussion. The only issue is I don't, at least for my school, I don't think we've done enough to teach them on how to have a discussion. We focus a lot on speeches. And so to suddenly ask your students, now have a discussion, they know how to do a speech. And then say, that's all, next person. Speech, that's all, next person. So I actually find discussions really hard, but they're kind of ready for debate actually. Because with a debate, you have to do a little speech, and then the complicated part is you have to listen to the other person and then rebut their argument, attack their argument. So this is where I think debate is better, because you can have this little back and forth that can build students up to eventually having a discussion maybe. But debate can be a bit scary, especially if you do the full formal debate. So I want to introduce two easier versions for today. So there's paper debate and pair debate. Okay, so a paper debate. I've got this little template that I'm hoping to upload. I forgot to bring a printout today. But basically it uses the ACE 20 characters because it's like a courtroom drama, so it's a fun way to visualize it for the students. But you get this one student to write down their opinion like they would like an essay normally. Then you have the first student pass to their friend. Their friend writes here in this box, and they have to disagree with their part, what the first person wrote. And then at the end, you pass it back to the original person. And at this stage, I like to have the first person try to summarize what the person before just said, and then they have to rebut it. So here I don't focus too much on that summary section because it's a little bit difficult. They can just like try and give a new reason if that's all they have. But at the end, we want them to try and really listen or like read what their friend said and come back against that point specifically. So yes, that's a very simple one. And then after this stage, I like to move them up to pair debates next. So I say pair debate, but I actually really put my students in about a group of 3. So I have one person be the affirmative side and one person be negative. And then I have a third student ideally act as like the judge and timekeeper. And if we're up to it, they can also have like a little chairperson script that says, you know, hello, today's debate topic is, should we ban homework? Today we have this on this side. And you can do like a little, give them like a little preparation for when they go to a full formal debate and someone has to run the entire thing. And, okay. So, I also have like another little activity that's not quite debate, but it's a nice another gateway to it. It's the game Would You Rather. You probably know it if you're an English speaker. Play it a lot to pass time, and it's fun where you can just, I say let's try one now, we probably won't have time for it, but you can fill in the blanks with would you rather, you know, eat an apple, eat a hamburger, would you rather live in the sky or live in the sea? I don't think I gave an example on my sheet, but we had one at the beginning. Would you rather take the free road or the toll road? And then I've got a very basic discussion dialogue here. So this is better if you're not quite at like essay writing or debate level, but a nice way to start introducing opinions to go back and forth. I've included a little note at the bottom. Feel free to read that in your own time. So now it's about like 2 minutes left, I think. Any questions? Yes, please.
So for when you do the paper debates.
Yes.
So you've got the students broken up in pairs. While like person B is writing their disagreement.
Yeah.
What do you have person A do?
Oh, they're both write
so
the
they
first.
switch?
They switch fully, yeah.
So do you give them different topics or like?
Same topic.
Okay.
Yeah. So if they both agree the first time, they both have to disagree
Okay.
the second time. If so depends on if you want, like, if you trust your students have a high level, I would let them pick the side themselves. If they're very low level, I would start them all on the same side of the argument. So then you can guide them through at the same pace. So it's like you all agree first, and you're all gonna disagree. Yeah, you can make that work as you want. Anything else? Any other questions? I also don't have the answers to everything. So if someone has any comments as well, please. Any ways to modify stuff or... Oh, okay.